So in this case, you're not leading, which is good. You're taking a break from your leadership, and you're just opening the life and opening to God and getting refreshed and reset.
Hey everyone, it's me, Paul Keller-Mossman. Welcome to the next episode in our Leader Seeds podcast. I want to introduce you to a friend that I was having a really interesting conversation about. I got to tell you, it really was inspiring and almost very refreshing. And I think that's what you'll get in today's conversation as you listen in with us. His name is Rich Lewis. Now, Rich is an author, a speaker, a coach, and he really focuses on centering prayer. You'll hear all about it, so stay with us today. I want to first welcome Rich to the conversation today. Rich, are you there?
Yes, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining again on the conversation. I know the last time we met offline, to prep for this here in the podcast, we got a chance to dive in the book a bit. I got a chance to open up the pages. So I feel like a little bit, maybe a beginner, level 1 insider in the conversation today. So anyone listening to the podcast, just kind of, I want to encourage you to, you'll have an opportunity to do the same after listening to the podcast, to dive in more of the information that we talk about today. But Rich, if you can start us off really quickly, I'd love to know a little bit, if you had to share really quickly to answer the question, what is centering prayer? How would you do that?
Sure. Real quick, centering prayer is meditation, silent, wordless prayer, so wordless meditation, no words are spoken, but also a relationship with God. And it was created, just to let people know how long it's been around. It was created in the early 1970s by 3 Trappist monks. They saw meditation happening, and they wanted something for the Christian community. So they created it. One of the priests, William Meninger, discovered the method in a 14th century book called The Cloud of Unknowing. But so at a high level, it's wordless prayer, but it's really meditation and a relationship with God, because during centering prayer, we're opening to the presence and actions of God within. Now, and we should share, so let me know when you want me to do that, how you do it. I mean, that's what it is. And then obviously people would want to know, well, how do I do this?
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that, and a bit of the history behind it too, and why I thought it was so interesting to have it here on Leader Seeds podcast, where we typically are talking about high impact and healthy leadership. All the conversations here on the podcast is all around high impact and healthy leadership. And hearing this at first might be like, wait, we usually talk strategy, we talk, businessman mindset, and high impact and healthy leadership is about the entire leader, not just the headstrong leader or the productive leader in the work hours. I think that's an old belief. I think that's really, drive ourselves till we're burnt out. We're seeing more and more that's not a healthy example. I once heard it said, and I believe it to my core, that one of the best things we can give others is a healthy version of ourselves. So if we are unhealthy as a leader, I mean, the impact, the bad impact that makes, who really knows how far that ripples away. So we really want to have healthy practices and boundaries and a time, because even though we're a great leader and then leaders have great success, we all have limitations. We're all human. We have a time when we got to recharge. We got to slow down. Now, when I got a chance to dive in a book, Rich, there's a lot of things that I practices that you share in the book that was I want to say refreshing is the word that comes to mind, because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I think I have my leader cap on before, I almost feel like these things that you talk about we can't do as a leader, like slow down. Right? It sounds like a crazy idea, but I think in leadership circles, it's almost like the faster you go, the better you are. Maybe explain, I mean, do you have any kind of insight or background, or has anyone came to you with that wrong belief, where it's like in leadership, the faster I go, the better I am. And then you're introducing into this idea of centering prayer. Without going into too much depth with what prayer is, just on that specific conversation, like, do you have that experience with leaders?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was, or in general, people will worry that they don't have time to do something like this,
Right,
and
right.
I'll explain to people that when you do a practice like this, it gives you back time. It has a way of actually giving you back time, and the fruits of the practice are, productivity and calmness and inner wisdom, and being able to focus on the most important tasks and let go of the tasks that are not important, maybe that need to get done that day. So those are the type of conversations I'll have with people to say this is a type of practice you might want to consider because this is what it can do. And then even for those that then begin practicing it, like I even recommend 2 silent sits a day. People will say, I don't have time for a second sit. And I'll tell people, just try it. And you'll be amazed when you look back, at the rest. So if you do a second sit right before lunch, and then later in the evening, look back at your day, at least for me, I find that I'm very productive, and I'm pleased that I did the sit, and I needed that sit, and it helped me finish the day strong. So just trust the process. It works when you take time for a second sit. If you are frazzled for the next 4 hours, you're not going to be productive. You're not going to get done what needs to get done.
That's so true in many ways, and I think it takes an honest look, and maybe an honest self-awareness of where we're at, in our, whether it's home leadership, or if you're running a business as CEO, maybe you're a manager or director at work, different forms of leadership, even the whole personal leadership journey we talk about on the podcast. But it to take that honest self-awareness view, like how you're saying, right, where it's like, hey, when do I sit? When do I take the time to sit and be okay with not having the go button 24 hours a day? It's like we're constantly trying to do more with less time. Now, one thing that stood out to me and was really interesting that I'd love to hear your insight on is like when you talk about centering prayer, for those people that maybe already have a prayer practice in their day, I take time to pray, centering prayer is even a little different than that, right? Because the normal, I guess, prayer that you hear has, things, maybe sometimes I haven't seen it have like a format, it has a formula to it, and it has a plan going into prayer, which is kind of interesting, right? But centering prayer, how does that differ from, what makes it unique from just prayer?
Sure. So most people think of prayer as talking. You're talking, and verbal. It's verbal, and you're either talking or asking for something, or thanking, or being thankful, or complaining, or it's nonverbal prayer. So why don't I explain how you do it? So that way they'll understand. So it's nonverbal
Yes.
prayer. So to do centering prayer, you sit comfortably with your eyes closed. And then to begin your silent sit, you introduce what we call a sacred word. It's usually 1 or 2 syllables to keep it simple. So it could be God, ocean, it could be a color, it could be the word Jesus. You introduce that word to begin your time and to begin the purpose of your prayer, which is opening to the presence and actions of God within. And then whenever you begin engaging your thoughts, and what I mean by that is you're thinking about what did you do before your sit and what has happened, or you're thinking about, well, what am I going to do after my sit, and what things do I have to accomplish the second half of the day, or if it's the first beginning of the day for you. You're no longer sitting with yourself and God. You're sitting with your thoughts and your planning. You reintroduce that sacred word, let go of your engaged thoughts, come back to the present, and then let go of that sacred word as well. And you just do that when needed during your silent sit. You don't use it, and it's not used as a mantra. There are mantra practices where you're repeating sayings. In this case, it's used just when needed. And that's really how you do it. You do that when needed during the duration of the time you've chosen to sit.
Wow.
So it's a constantly letting go of your thoughts and coming back to the present, letting go, coming back to the present, letting go, coming back to the present.
Right. And it almost seems like, I hope I don't get this wrong, but I remember saying is like, there's a difference between being still and doing nothing. Right. There's a big difference, right? It's like when we're still, there's a lot of things going on because it's not as easy as we think. Sometimes I think it's easier to be busy to just stay busy and feel productive and feel like I'm, getting things done when I'm really messing more things up, right? I mean, how many people are going through that in a week? You feel like you work 800 hours and then you look back and you got one or two things actually done. So it's like when you can really sit down and really kind of focus and take this where you slow things down. And maybe even the word that comes to mind is reset. It's like there's this reset that happens because of life. Life takes its toll on us, outside demands or maybe external priorities, and there's different things that start to get thrown on our table. And what happens is that, I mean, the first thing that jumped to my mind when I started to understand the power of where you're talking about having these sits, having sit number one and then a second sit, is like before I even would do anything like this, there was a high probability of burnout. How quick can someone implement this in their life?
I guess it comes down to a decision. So if you decide you want to try something like this, it really comes down to a decision that you're going to do it. And then what I recommend is, one, make it the first thing you do to begin your day. It might be the best way to do it. That way, you're going to discipline yourself when you wake up, whether it's a weekday or weekend. That's the first thing you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And then take baby steps. So I go for 20 minutes, but you don't have to jump right into 20 minutes. Try it for 1 minute or 5 minutes, but just start first thing in the morning, start with 1 or 2 minutes, and then over time, increase the duration to 10, 15, 20 minutes. So that's the first thing I would say. And then once maybe you have that down, once you're finding this is a practice that resonates well with you and you're doing it every morning and you're doing it for 10, 15 or 20 minutes, then add a second sit at some point later in the day. And if you have to take the same approach, make that second sit 1 or 2 minutes and slowly work it up to 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
So that's what I would encourage people to do. But it is a discipline and you have to show up. And even if you don't want to do it, that's really just a thought and you let go of it. And sometimes I don't want to show up, but I do. I said, that's a thought and I let go of it and I show up.
Right.
Hi, I'm Bridget from the Beehive. Yesterday, Beehive Las Vegas hosted our back to school event. We helped over 100 children receive free backpacks and free school supplies. We wanted to say thank you to our community for all the donations. If you want to find out more about the Beehive, please look for our IG at the Beehive Buzz.
So I say, like how you said, start now and even start small, right? Like you can do something tomorrow morning, right? As soon as they wake up, if they're listening to the podcast, and do it for a minute. And then slowly increase it to 2 and then to 5, and you start to kind of build in that. But the discipline and the consistency is pretty critical, right? I mean, in keeping this as a lifestyle.
No, I would definitely say so. And I would say even for me, my second sit is critical. So yeah, I'm busy. I'm working from home and I've been working from home, since COVID broke out, and I'm busy, but I stop what I'm doing and I do my sit. And you use the word reset. I think I use that in the book. It's like a reset button. I reset myself in the middle of the day so that I can be better at the second half of the day, because I'm tired, I'm drained perhaps, and I need to reset and refresh myself. So I discipline myself to take that second sit as well and stop what I'm doing. And I'm always pleased when I look back at the second half of the day, at the end of the day, that look at what I got done. And I know it's because I took the time to reset and refresh myself.
I love it. That reset is key. I had a question in mind, but when you mentioned that, I'd love to hear, if somebody's listening to this podcast, I think most times they listen to this. So if you're listening to this, you're driving, or you might be going to work, or maybe you're working out, and there's a high chance that you hear something like this and it's not, you don't push back on it. It's like, oh, of course. That makes sense. We should reset. I want to be healthier. I want to be a healthy leader. I don't want to lead to burnout. So a lot of things we talk about, there's agreement, But I really want to know, in your experience, as you coach people, as you guide them through it, what blocks someone from having that insight, but having that hurdle to actually apply it in their life?
Some of it is just discipline so I that's where I suggest first thing in the morning. So that's one thing. It's just the discipline to do it. And then even for the second sit. So I guess if I think about my coaching clients, I have they seem to fall into three different groups. One are people that they don't trust themselves to begin a process. They want someone to help them create a long-term sustainable practice. So that's kind of the first group of people that I coach, are people that come to me and say, I want to learn how to do this, when to do it, how can it help me? But I also know that I need someone to hold me accountable, or I probably just won't do it. And then the second group are people that have been practicing, but they realize, what, I think there's more to this than I'm giving it credit for. I want to go deeper in my practice. I know this practice can help me live from my true self, the person God wants me to be. And I also know that maybe I should be practicing twice a day, but I don't have the discipline to do that. So I have kind of a second group of people that want to go deeper in their practice and add a second sit. And then the third group are people, clergy, priests and pastors that say, I'm doing a terrible job at my self-care. I'm taking care of my flock, so to speak, but I'm not taking care of myself. I need you to help me and hold me accountable for my self-care, or I'm going to burn out. So as I've coached over the years, people tend to fall into one of those three categories.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. Getting started, right? A lot of people that have that challenge of just starting it. It's like, because it might be a change in their schedule, and that's tough. Change in schedule is habits, right? We're a creature of habits as humans, and to change that, to add something, even if it's as small as a minute, it could be like just extremely tough. So thank you for sharing that, because a few things that I caught was like accountability is great. Having people that, the more you see people that are doing it, the habit, the more you're apt to do it. It's like, before you want to get on the basketball court, just get to the court. Don't worry about getting on the court. Get to the court. You'll see people playing on the court. Same association here is that get around people that are actually implementing this in their life. Then you can see the results of that. So is there different ways to do that? So social media groups, or different maybe ways that they connect, and they have different ways to be part of that? Or is that just how you coach?
No, there are. So actually, there's lots of centering prayer groups, so they can actually go, and I would recommend people do that. So the contemplativeoutreach.org is really the main centering prayer organization. So the three Trappist priests created centering prayer in the early 1970s. And then one of them, Thomas Keating, kind of founded the Contemplative Outreach in 1984. So if you go to that website, there's centering prayer groups that practice in all the states in the US, and as well as internationally. So you can actually find a group and practice with them. Right now, most of them are probably on Zoom, but pre-COVID, they might have still been on Zoom pre-COVID. Some of them are in actual buildings or churches or certain locations. But right now, you could find a group that practices. They usually practice once. Some of them probably once a week. Right. So that'll help hold you accountable. You could join a group, and they're not going to exclude you. They're going to welcome you, and you're going to join them. And some of them are quick in terms of you just join and you do a 20-minute sit with them, and then you leave. Some of them, I think, maybe have more, opening discussion, and then they go into the silent sit, and they have some community after the sit, and maybe the time is 1 hour. So each group is different, but yes, that may help as well, is practice. And it seems funny, and I've done it now many times. It is pretty neat and powerful to even do it on Zoom. So yes, there's a lot of groups that you can find and join in and make yourself a little bit more accountable. And maybe some of the groups in a nice way will hold you accountable, because you'll start becoming friendly and friends with people, and everybody will wonder, well, where is he? He didn't show up, or something like that.
Right. And though it might be different, whether it's Zoom or a different community or different, it's what I like you said before, there isn't really these pre-qualifications you have to do. Like you have to know so much, biblical literature, or you have to know so much, whatever it may be. So it's not like you have to come with certain pre-qualifications, right? It's just come as you are and reach out to somebody. But that start is key, because without that start, nothing follows after that. In the book, you mentioned something about the beginner's mind. So since we're talking about start, I'd love to, if you can share a little bit more about what that is and what you share in the book about the beginner's mind.
Sure. I mean, it's really just coming as a child, and you're not coming with any knowledge, or you're not the expert of, you're just showing up. And I even consider myself a beginner each time I show up. I'm coming and letting go of me and all of my thoughts and all of my expectations and any wisdom that I think I have. And I'm just a beginner, and I think of it as a reverse prayer. God is praying in me what I need, even for that very day. And that could be many things. It could be just calmness or inner peace or wisdom for tasks or nudges to get out of my comfort zone. So that's really what I mean, is you're just coming and letting go of any preconceived notions and just coming as you are and letting go and seeing what happens, and letting God transform us and letting God act in us, and just getting out of the way and let it happen instead of you doing the planning. So in this case, you're not leading, which is good. You're taking a break from your leadership, and you're just opening the life and opening to God, and getting refreshed and reset.
Right. Thank you for that. The beginner's mind, coming from a place, like you said, as a child. I think for me, when I can implement that, I got a chance to try it a few times, be honest with you. Read the book, sat down in the morning, and just like how you suggest, I do it first thing in the morning. And then I don't have the second sit as much as I'd like to be honest with you, but I'm working on that, and it's a step in a day at a time, right? But when you say that with the beginner's mind, I'll just share personally, it's like, it's interesting. Like a lot of times there's a child in us that's still speaking out. I told this with another friend the other day. The voice that we use in our day-to-day, it matters, good or bad, right? But how much of the voice that we're using is actually a reflection of a voice that was spoken to us? So there was an authority in our past that spoke a certain way with words and tone and pace and assumptions and attitude. And now we are projecting out on other people. So what happens is that we are not really being our true voice. So to take this time in just to share my experience with it right now, it's really helping me even more so find my true voice. Like to say, well, that's not my attitude on that situation, and that's not my assumptions. And I don't want to use those words or that tone. By just stopping and just sitting in silence for some time. It's interesting. There's a lot of answers that come in the silence. Or even if we stay with alliteration, I'd say there is a certain wisdom in the whispers. And it's mind-blowing. It's really healing for me. Like when you say about the beginner's mindset, right? Now, saying beginner's mindset, is that something like, am I thinking it too strategically if I think beginner's mindset is like stage one and then you grow into stage two? Or is beginner's mindset something that everyone, no matter how long you've been doing it, you revisit and you start from?
You revisit it. I mean, you come to each sit exactly as you are, where you are, but you're letting go. So yes, you really are a beginner. You can think of it every time you show up for your silent sit, you're a beginner, because you're not in charge. You're letting go.
With everything changing so quickly, it can be hard to keep your team growing together. Learning better communication and keeping up with effective strategies can be difficult when you have so much more to do. That's why Po'okela Chief Development and Leadership Strategies are here to support you in your training and development goals. Who do you know that is looking to improve your staff meetings, engage one-on-one communication, scale your organization to the next level, or bring in a dynamic speaker for your next event? Now back to the show.
for those that's listening, I want to speak to them really quickly because I love this idea on the podcast that we're all in a conversation. They hear my voice, they hear your voice, Rich, but they're in a conversation too. And I want to include them in that right now and speak directly to them. And feel free to jump in right after me. But isn't that, if you're listening to the podcast, isn't that refreshing to know that you can release responsibility at this time? This is your time that you take, that you release that responsibility. All throughout the day as a leader, you carry a huge weight on your shoulders of responsibility for deadlines, responsibility for different things that you have, tasks you want to get done, and you're probably really amazing at it. That's why you keep doing it. But you're tired because you're human and you get exhausted. But you can take this time, and I want you to be encouraged with it, to release that responsibility for a little bit. And then it's not forever. You pick it back up again and you're good and you carry on and keep going. But a quick moment, like Rich said, 1 minute to 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 20 minutes. It's almost like a recharge, almost like a reset. I want you to be encouraged by that if you're listening in here. Any words on that, Rich?
Yeah, I guess what I would say, I was talking a lot about, make it the first thing you do. And then I was talking about, then add a second sit over time. You can do mini sits whenever needed. So, and I do that. Like if I have an important meeting and I'm nervous about it, I'll just do a 1 minute sit and then go to my meeting. Or if I have to go to the doctor and I don't like going to the doctor, I'm always scared of the doctor. I always arrive a little bit early. I do a 1 or 2 minute sit in my car, then walk in. So you can reset and refresh at any time when you think you need it. So it doesn't have to be the first thing in the morning, and it doesn't have to be your second sit. Maybe you need a quick 1 minute reset before you have some important task or some important meeting or something you have to do that always gives you anxiety. So you can do a mini sit at any time just to reset yourself.
There you go. So I love it. I love how it's not so just has to be structured at a certain time. It's, you want to be consistent and you want discipline, but at the same time, it's still like an ongoing listen to your body, like you're saying, right? In the morning, if it works better, if you have anxiety throughout the day with a different meeting, put in a second time to sit. With all this going on, I have to wonder, and I don't know if it's just my curiosity taking over in my mind right now, just with the new topic and in this conversation. But what is the real work that's really going on when you're silent? I think you covered that a little bit in the book too, and I was reading in there. If you could share that, I think that would be really, really impactful.
Sure. So so often people will wonder, well, what's really happening? And you notice it outside of your silent sit time. But what's really happening is a lot of things are happening. If you think about it, your body holds a lot of tension, and your mind holds a lot of thoughts, and your mind holds a lot of repressed thoughts as well that you don't even know you're holding on to. So during this time, your body is relaxing. And during this time, thoughts that are bothering you are coming out, and that's natural and part of the process, even though it can be scary, and even repressed thoughts are coming out. So you're really being healed. Your mind, your body, your heart are being healed. So as you continue to come to your silent sits, if you think about it over time, it's a tremendous healing that your body is getting rid of tension that it's been holding on to for years, and that your mind and heart is getting rid of things that you've been carrying with you for years, and many times going all the way back to childhood. So I guess a healing is occurring over time. Is definitely what's happening. And then also what's happening is, and you notice the fruits of the practice outside. We come, centering prayer practitioners, or at least I come to my sit because I just want to sit with God. I love God. I trust God. And I just want to trust God and trust the process. I notice outside of my sits how I've changed. So since I've been practicing centering prayer since June of 2014, I'm a much more confident person. I'm more excited to live life. I'm more willing to get out of my comfort zone and try and do new things. And I'm more calm, or I can calm myself down quicker, and I'm less reactive. I'm more willing to listen, not fight somebody or instantly say, no, that doesn't make sense and that's wrong. So for me, it's just been tremendous fruits from the practice that God has given me. So, but I just come to my sit to trust. I come with no expectation. I don't come wishing from a large genie in the sky saying this is what I want. I simply show up and trust that what I need will be provided, and I'll see it and notice it outside of this time.
Wow, that's so good. That's so good in that that word trust, and then at the same time, like how you're saying, where you just have this knowing that what you need will be provided. Like you don't have to do the providing, and I think that's important to say again, and for our listeners to hear, because a lot of times, if you're anything like me, you're always providing as a leader. You're providing, whether it's work for the employees, or you're providing opportunity for the team, or you're providing resources, or you're providing, whatever it is, you're providing for your home, and you're always in the sense of providing all the time. And we need someone like who provides for the leader, right? Who fills the leader? If the leader's pouring out all the time, and who's pouring back in and taking that time, like how you're saying, to just know that whatever you need will be provided. But we got to have our hands open, right? If our hands reaching out and giving, we got to have that moment to say that. Here's some benefits I want to bring up that you just shared. You said that that it releases tension. It also helps with your thoughts, your thought process. And a lot of times I remember doing a quick study and seeing that a lot of our thoughts are the same thoughts we thought before. Like they don't change, right? So if we don't take time to think new thoughts, we're continually reliving the same stress cycle over and over and over again. So tension, thoughts, healing, that happens. I mean, a healed leader is a high impact and healthy leader, but it takes that healing process to be more confident, to be more calm, to be less reactive. So awesome. And to listen, to be a leader that listens, to build that listening skill. So these are all benefits of taking that 1 minute, 2 minute time to kind of sit down and building from there. One thing I like to kind of share too, if I could, you mentioned about like healing. And when I remember the difference before learning about the difference from scars to wounds, right? A wound is that it's still exposed, right? There is no healing that happens. So if someone touches the wound, you jump, you're reactive. So as a leader, if somebody says something, if somebody does something and we react, is that a wound that's still open in our life? The beauty with scars is that they're healed. You can't touch someone's scar and have them jump, right? There's a healing, there's a covering that happened. But a lot of times in our journey, as we grow through life and even in our leadership, we build these leadership skills. But if we don't have our wounds healed to scars, then we're reactive with every little thing that jumps out. And sometimes that reaction will outpour on the team or on the family members, and they have to pay for that. But it also increases our stress levels ourselves. When we're reacting to every single thing, our stress level goes up. So as we can see with all of these things that came up on the conversation today, taking that time to really slow down and taking that minute, starting today, starting now, even if you start small with 1 minute. My hope with today's conversation, anyone that was listening in, is that the value that you've seen and the time that you take to have this practice increased 10 times. That's my goal. That was my motive, if there's a motive on today's conversation. The more I learned into this, the more I was like, I really hope in today's conversation and the podcast, whoever's listening in on it, the value that they place on that time to take time to have centered prayer will increase by 10 times. Because when that happens, then the hurdles to do it will lower, will lessen, will minimize. And then you'll be able to actually start and take that time. Rich, if you could share anything to encourage somebody, or if you're sitting now with somebody, I'd love to give our listeners some real live, maybe mini coaching from you. If you were to meet them for the first time right now, what would be a question you'd ask, or what would be something you'd help them prep with as they go about today before we finish the conversation?
I guess I would just encourage them to try a silent prayer practice. Most people probably don't. So centering prayer is not well known. So most people don't even know about it and why it's important. So I would just encourage people to do a 1 minute silent sit and make it the first thing you do in the morning, and try it for 1 month. And if you can increase the time over that, but at least do it once a month, do it once a day, first thing in the morning for a month, and see how it changes you, and ask your friends or peers or significant others, am I changing as well? If you're not noticing it, but just try it and see see what happens.
Thanks to the generous donations from people like you, we were able to provide 100 students with supplies to go back to school. To find out more about the Beehive Women and Teens, check out our website, thebeehivewomen.com, or our social media platforms, The Beehive Buzz.
In your book, you talk about it's not about emptying your mind to this time. You're focusing on a word, like you mentioned, and you're listening. So how would you help someone that maybe they understand meditation in a way to empty their mind and sit down, but centering prayer is a little different? And could you explain that difference just to have some good clarity on that?
I would say it's more of a letting go. So it's more of a surrender. It's just letting go of anxiety and anxious thoughts, but not just that. It's letting go of even exciting thoughts, because that maybe before you sat, you just had you watched a great movie or read a good book or had a nice conversation. You're even letting go of that. You're letting go of any thought that you're engaging and continuing to hold on to, and just opening to the present moment and letting be in the present moment. Because what happens in centering prayer is you connect to your true self. You let go of all of these thoughts and emotions, and once they kind of dissipate and go away, the only thing left is your true self and the person God wants you to be, and the actions you should take and can take, even if some of them are scary and out of your comfort zone.
I love it. And another buddy of mine said, you are always a very bad representation of someone else, but you're always the best version of your true self. I hope I didn't mess that up, but that's what comes to mind, where it's like so when you're saying that, like taking this time to be your true self, that's the best you can be. That's the absolute best you can be as a leader. That's the best you can pour into your family's life, to your business, to your organization, to wherever you're placed in that day. Being present in the moment really kind of dials and resets everything back into your true core. Awesome, Rich. I really appreciate the time that you spent, the knowledge that you shared with everyone on today's conversation. And I'd say not just knowledge, because I know there's research that was done and history that was done on this. This isn't a new idea. This is something this is a practice that has some great history on it, but it might be new to somebody listening in today. With that being said, if they wanted to learn more about it, how did they reach out? How did they get in touch with you?
Sure. The best place to find me is at my website, silenceteaches.com. If they subscribe, they'll get my free ebook on centering prayer. It's a short, easy to read book that'll kind of share what is centering prayer. The top of each page answers a question. So there's a question and it answers it. So it's a great way to learn about the practice. Then if it's something they want to further explore, my website has more information on centering prayer. And then if they want to go even deeper, they can check out my book on the website as well. My coaching, if that's something of interest to them, or if they're part of a group, a book study group or a church group. I do a lot of speaking in front of groups, so I'd be happy to join whatever group they're part of if they wanted me to come in and talk. But silenceteaches.com is the best and fastest way to find me.
Outstanding. You see multiple ways that you can get connected to Rich today, and it all starts with going ahead and in the description, I'll put the link. So if you're listening to here, just go jump on that description. You'll see the link. You can click right on. But if you're listening into this, just remember silenceteaches.com, and it'll take you right to the website, and with the many different ways that you can get connected to Rich, and maybe at different levels, like how he mentioned there. With that being said, thanks for the conversation today. I mean, I'm really encouraged because there's one thing I'm really passionate about. And the reason why, it's in the subtitle of what we talk about here in the podcast, not just high impact, but healthy leadership, right? A very important conversation that needs to happen, because an unhealthy leader does more damage than they really think that they're doing. So don't be an unhealthy leader by accident. Nobody is an unhealthy leader on purpose. It happens just by accident, by not doing the fundamentals, not putting in the right practices to stay healthy. We start healthy, but we want to stay healthy. And this is a good way we can stay healthy in our leadership, is by putting in this practice here with Centered Prayer. With that being said, thanks for joining us today. My name is Paul Calamostro, your leadership speaker and executive coach. I want to thank Rich Lewis for taking the time to share with us today on the podcast. Rich, if you can say a few last words to everyone here listening in.
I would just say, thanks for having me on. I hope this was something that was helpful for your community. And I think this type of practice can be extremely helpful for leaders, quite frankly. It helps them be better leaders. If they can just be, it helps them with the actual being and doing that they have to do.
Right. We're a human being, not a human doing. Right? Well said. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Go ahead, hit the link in the description, reach out to Rich. Go ahead, and if there was a moment of value that you brought that blessed your day today, as you listen to the podcast, we encourage you always to like, subscribe, and write a review. That helps us to continue to reach more people with high impact and healthy leadership. Once again, this is Paul Keller signing off for today. See you guys on the next episode.